My beloved child, stop for a moment, because the letter you thought would never arrive has finally found its way to you, and its first truth changes everything you believed about the silence. Don't skip. This was not written casually, and it was not created in a single emotional moment. Your soulmate has carried these words quietly, rewriting them again and again because every version seemed to leave out the one thing they desperately wanted you to understand. But tonight, the hesitation is over. The letter begins with a confession you never expected: there is something about my silence you misunderstood. And suddenly, everything feels different. The distance, the unanswered questions, the moments when you wondered whether you had been forgotten, they may not have meant what you assumed. Stay till the end, because the most surprising sentence has not been revealed yet. Your soulmate admits that there were countless moments when they wanted to speak, but every time they came close, they wondered whether the timing was wrong. They wondered whether you had already moved forward. They wondered whether opening this unfinished chapter would change both of your paths forever. Yet one thought kept returning: tomorrow might become another tomorrow, and eventually the truth might remain unsaid forever. That is why this letter carries one powerful message. Don't wait until tomorrow to understand what their heart has been trying to say. But here is where the letter takes an unexpected turn. Your soulmate does not simply write about missing you. They reveal that something changed inside them during the silence. They started remembering tiny details they once overlooked. The way certain conversations stayed in their mind, the unexpected peace they associated with your presence, and the strange realization that some connections become clearer only after time creates distance. Something huge is waiting for you, because halfway through the letter they finally admit why they kept it secret for so long. They were afraid their words would arrive before they truly understood them. They did not want to make a promise based on one emotional evening. They wanted certainty. And according to this letter, that certainty arrived when they imagined their future and realized one important person kept appearing in every version of it: you. Pause there. What if the silence was never the ending you thought it was? What if it became the space where they finally understood what your connection meant? Don't skip, because the next confession is even bigger. They write that there was one particular moment, ordinary to everyone else, that completely shifted their perspective. Nobody around them noticed anything unusual, yet inside their mind, one realization became impossible to ignore. They understood that continuing to hide their truth would eventually become harder than finally expressing it. And now the final lines of this part of the letter appear, and they are completely different from everything before them. Your soulmate writes: if these words ever reach you, please understand that I waited because I wanted to know whether this feeling would disappear with time. It didn't. It became clearer. Stay till the end, because that is still not the biggest revelation. Beneath those words is another message, almost as though it was added at the very last second. It says there is something they never told anyone about the future they secretly imagined, and you are at the center of that truth. They have been carrying a decision that could completely redefine what happens next, but before revealing it, they need you to understand why this letter had to reach you now instead of tomorrow. Something has shifted. A chapter they believed could remain unfinished suddenly feels ready to be opened again. And somewhere between the first sentence and the final handwritten thought, one truth becomes impossible to miss: this letter was never meant to remind you of the past. It was written because your soulmate believes the next chapter could look completely different. Something huge is waiting for you, and the next words reveal the exact moment they stopped running from what they truly wanted. Now listen carefully, because the next page of the letter begins with a sentence your soulmate almost removed, and once you hear why, the entire silence may suddenly look different. There was a moment when I realized I could keep pretending nothing had changed, or finally admit what kept returning to my mind. Don't skip. Your soulmate explains that this realization did not arrive during some dramatic moment. It happened unexpectedly, in the middle of an ordinary day, when something small reminded them of you. For a few seconds, everything around them seemed less important than one question they had avoided for far too long. What if the person I keep trying to forget is actually the person I was supposed to understand more deeply? That question stayed with them. Hours passed, yet it remained. Days moved forward, yet somehow your memory continued appearing in the quietest moments. And then came the realization they had never expected. They were no longer wondering whether they still cared. They were wondering what would happen if they finally stopped hiding it. Stay till the end, because the letter is about to reveal something even more surprising. Your soulmate admits they had imagined reaching out many times, but each time they stopped themselves because they wanted their next move to come from clarity, not temporary emotion. And now, according to these words, that clarity has finally arrived. Then the handwriting changes, as though this next section was written faster because they could no longer hold the truth back. I finally understood why tomorrow kept feeling too late. Something huge is waiting for you. Your soulmate reveals that they started imagining two different futures. In one, nothing changed. Both of you continued forward carrying unanswered questions, wondering what might have happened if someone had simply been brave enough to speak. But in the second future, one honest conversation changed everything. No pretending. No guessing. Just two people finally understanding what had been hidden beneath the silence. And here comes the once-in-a-lifetime revelation. Your soulmate writes that they do not want another chapter built on assumptions. They want you to know the truth directly from them. Don't skip, because there is one sentence circled on this page, and it may be the reason this letter was written at all. I was waiting for the perfect moment until I realized the perfect moment might never announce itself. That realization changed their thinking completely. Suddenly, tomorrow was no longer guaranteed to feel easier than today. Another week would not automatically create courage. Another month would not answer the questions they had been avoiding. So they made a decision. If these words could reach you, they would finally stop leaving everything to chance. But the biggest surprise is hidden near the bottom of the page. Your soulmate reveals that this letter contains one final section they struggled to write more than anything else. It is not simply about their feelings. It is about a choice they have quietly made concerning what comes next. Stay till the end, because everything before this has only been preparing you for that revelation. They write, if I could speak to you without hesitation, there is one question I would ask before anything else. But they do not reveal the question immediately. Instead, they explain why it matters so much. Apparently, your answer could determine whether this connection remains a beautiful unfinished memory or becomes the beginning of something neither of you expected. Something huge is waiting for you, because beside that unfinished question your soulmate has written 4 words twice: I finally chose honesty. And underneath, almost hidden at the edge of the page, there is another line: there is something about us you still don't know. That is where the page ends. No explanation. No easy answer. Only one final clue pointing toward the next page, the page containing the secret they originally believed they would never have the courage to tell you. The next page begins differently, as if your soulmate stopped writing, walked away, then returned after finally deciding there was no reason to hide anymore. At the top is one sentence: there is a reason I never finished saying goodbye. Don't skip, because this is where the secret letter changes direction completely. Your soulmate explains that every time they tried to convince themselves your chapter belonged entirely in the past, something inside them questioned that conclusion. Not because they wanted to live inside old memories, but because there were things between you that never received an honest answer. Conversations ended before the real words appeared. Feelings remained unexplained. Questions stayed unanswered. And now comes the surprising confession: your soulmate admits they once believed enough time would make those questions disappear. Instead, time made one question louder: what if we misunderstood each other at the exact moment we needed honesty most? Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. The letter reveals that your soulmate started looking back differently, noticing moments they had interpreted through uncertainty instead of clarity. Suddenly, they wondered whether you had also been waiting for something neither of you knew how to say. And that possibility became impossible for them to ignore. Then comes the line they apparently rewrote again and again: the secret is not that I remembered you. The secret is what I realized because I remembered you. Your soulmate says they began imagining what they would tell you if they had only one completely honest conversation. No pretending, no trying to predict your reaction, no hiding behind perfect words. And strangely, their answer was not complicated. They would tell you that knowing you changed something in them. You made them question what they truly wanted from connection, trust, timing, and the future. Don't skip, because the next sentence explains why this letter had to reach you now. I kept waiting to become completely certain about everything, until I realized certainty sometimes begins with telling the truth. That is the turning point. They are not promising some perfect story. They are admitting something far more meaningful: they are finally willing to stop hiding behind uncertainty. Something huge is waiting for you, because underneath that confession is the question they refused to reveal on the previous page. If we could begin one conversation again, knowing everything we understand now, would you hear me out? And immediately beneath it comes another sentence: because there is one thing I would do differently. But wait, the letter still has another page, and its opening words are underlined. This is what I never told you. Stay till the end, because your soulmate is finally approaching the revelation they protected more carefully than anything else. They explain that long before writing this letter, they had quietly made a promise to themselves: if your paths ever opened toward each other again, they would not repeat the silence that created so much confusion before. They would speak clearly. They would listen differently. They would stop assuming they already knew what you were thinking. And then comes the unexpected part: apparently, the future they imagined was never about returning to exactly what existed before. Your soulmate wants something new, something built with greater honesty than the old chapter ever had. Don't skip. At the very bottom of the page, there is one final sentence written larger than everything surrounding it. If you are reading this, then the truth has already traveled farther than my fear ever could. But beside those words is a small arrow pointing toward the final section of the letter. And next to that arrow are 7 words that change the entire meaning of everything you have heard. Now I need to reveal my decision. And suddenly, the final section opens with the words your soulmate struggled the longest to write. I made my decision when I finally understood what losing another chance to speak would mean. Don't skip, because this is not the decision you may be expecting. Your soulmate is not demanding an answer, asking you to forget everything that happened, or pretending the past was perfect. Their decision is much simpler, and somehow much bigger. They have decided they will no longer allow silence to speak for them. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. The letter says, I cannot control where this story goes, but I can finally control whether I tell you the truth. And then comes the revelation hidden behind everything you have heard so far. They never wrote this letter to pull you backward. They wrote it because they finally became ready to tell you what they would want if life ever gave both of you another honest conversation. They would want to begin without assumptions. They would want to hear what you experienced instead of guessing. They would want to tell you what they misunderstood. Most importantly, they would want you to know that your presence left a deeper impression than they ever admitted. What if that is why this letter feels so different? What if the real secret was never simply that they still thought about you, but that those thoughts changed the way they now understand connection itself? Then you reach a folded section of the letter, and inside it is a message written separately, almost as if your soulmate wanted these words protected until the very end. There was one future I kept seeing whenever I allowed myself to stop being afraid of uncertainty. Don't skip. They describe nothing extravagant. Instead, they imagine one simple moment, the two of you finally sitting across from each other, speaking without old assumptions between you. No pretending to know what the other person feels. No racing ahead. Just honesty. And your soulmate admits that this possibility became more meaningful to them than any imaginary perfect ending. Something huge is waiting for you, because they finally reveal the decision behind the secret letter. If another opportunity to speak ever appears, they intend to take it. Not tomorrow. Not after waiting for some flawless sign. They want to stop postponing the words that matter. The letter continues, maybe you will understand me. Maybe you will see everything differently. But at least the truth will finally belong to both of us instead of remaining locked inside my thoughts. And there it is. The reason the title of this message matters so much. Don't wait until tomorrow was never about rushing your heart. It was about refusing to let meaningful words remain permanently unsaid. But just when you believe the letter has revealed everything, you notice something on the back of the final page. One last handwritten message. Stay till the end, because this changes the meaning of the entire letter. Your soulmate writes, if you reached this line, there is something I hope you understand. I did not send these words expecting you to become who you were before. I wanted you to know who I have become after finally understanding what our silence taught me. Then comes the final surprise. They have left one blank space beneath a single question. If we ever speak again, can we begin with the truth? Something huge is waiting for you, not because a perfect ending has been guaranteed, but because an unopened possibility has finally become visible. Your soulmate's secret letter has reached its destination, and the message inside it is clearer than ever. Some chapters do not need to be forced open, but when honesty finally arrives, it deserves to be heard. And just beneath the signature is one last line, smaller than all the others, yet somehow stronger. There is still one thing I could not put into this letter, because I want to tell you myself. But the letter was not actually finished, because tucked behind the final page is one smaller note, and the first sentence feels like the confession your soulmate had been building toward all along. If I tell you this last truth, you may finally understand why I could not wait until tomorrow. Don't skip. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Your soulmate admits there was one thought they intentionally kept away from the main letter because writing it made everything feel suddenly real. They had spent so much time wondering what they would say if another conversation with you became possible, but eventually they asked themselves a completely different question: what would they regret never saying? The answer arrived immediately. They would regret allowing you to believe that you meant less to them than you actually did. They would regret letting silence become your only explanation. And most of all, they would regret never telling you that knowing you changed the way they imagine their future. Not because they expect you to wait for them, and not because they believe either of you should remain trapped inside the past. It is something deeper. Your soulmate writes, "You became part of the reason I learned that real connection cannot survive forever on assumptions. It needs courage. It needs honesty. It needs two people willing to hear what is actually being said." And then there is a pause in the handwriting, followed by one underlined sentence: "That is what I wish I had understood sooner." Now the secret letter becomes even more surprising. Your soulmate reveals that while writing these pages, they repeatedly imagined your reaction. Would you smile? Would you become quiet? Would you question why these words took so long? They cannot know. But something changed when they realized they did not need to predict your response before being honest. Don't skip, because this is the moment the entire message turns toward the future. I used to believe I needed to know exactly how everything would end before I could take one meaningful step, they write. Now I understand that sometimes the first step is simply telling someone the truth and respecting whatever comes afterward. Something huge is waiting for you. Beneath that sentence, your soulmate reveals what they wanted to tell you personally. If your paths ever cross again, they do not want the first conversation to be about blame, old confusion, or proving who understood things correctly. They want to ask who you are now. They want to know what changed inside you while life continued moving. They want to listen to the things they once failed to hear. And then comes the line that makes the entire letter feel different. I am not asking to recreate yesterday. I am wondering whether two people who learned from yesterday could create something entirely new. That is the possibility they have secretly carried, not a guaranteed ending, but an honest beginning. And then you reach the true final lines. Stay till the end, because your soulmate has saved the most powerful realization for this moment. If tomorrow comes and nothing changes, I will still be grateful that these words finally existed outside my mind. But if this letter becomes the beginning of one honest conversation, then perhaps all that silence taught us something after all. Don't skip these final words. Your soulmate does not know exactly what happens next, and that uncertainty is precisely what makes their decision meaningful. They finally chose truth without demanding an outcome. They finally allowed you to know what had remained hidden. And underneath everything is one last sentence, written alone. Whatever comes next should begin with honesty. Something huge is waiting for you, not some impossible promise, but the possibility that the story you thought was completely understood still contained a page you had never seen. The secret letter has finally reached you. The silence has finally been given words. And somewhere beyond this final page is the question neither distance nor time could answer for either of you. If tomorrow offered one unexpected opportunity to speak again, what truth would finally be said? Just when you think there cannot possibly be another revelation, you notice something written inside the envelope itself, a message so carefully hidden that it could have been missed completely. There is one reason I kept this letter longer than I should have. Don't skip, because this changes the story again. Your soulmate explains that finishing the letter was never the difficult part. Letting it go was. Every time they imagined these words finally reaching you, one question stopped them: what if you had already become happier without these unanswered questions? They did not want to interrupt your peace simply because they had finally found their courage. So they waited. They reread every page. They removed promises they could not guarantee and replaced them with truths they could stand behind. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Eventually, your soulmate realized something important. Honesty does not mean controlling someone else's decision. It means allowing them to know the truth and respecting what they choose to do with it. That realization finally gave them the courage to release the letter. And then comes the sentence that explains everything: I was not waiting because I had nothing to say. I was waiting because I had too much to say, and I wanted the words that reached you to be real. But there is another revelation hidden beneath that confession. Your soulmate writes that one particular memory kept returning while they prepared this letter. It was not some enormous unforgettable event. It was a tiny moment that probably seemed ordinary when it happened, a conversation, a look of understanding, a moment when they felt they could simply be themselves around you. Don't skip. That memory became important because your soulmate finally understood what they had been searching for in every imagined future: not perfection, but the feeling of being genuinely understood. Something huge is waiting for you, because they admit they compared that feeling with everything they had learned since your paths changed, and one conclusion kept returning: you had influenced them far more deeply than they ever told you. They write, I remembered the person I was around you, but I also started thinking about the person I could become if I stopped letting uncertainty make every decision for me. And suddenly, this secret letter is no longer simply about what happened between two people. It is about growth. It is about finally recognizing what silence can teach when someone is brave enough to listen. Your soulmate cannot rewrite yesterday, but they can refuse to repeat the same hesitation tomorrow. Then comes the final surprise. There is a date written beneath the hidden message, followed by one unfinished sentence. Stay till the end. Your soulmate had apparently planned to wait longer before allowing these words to reach you, but something inside them changed their mind. They crossed out the later date and wrote beside it, "Why should truth always wait for tomorrow?" That is the heartbeat of the entire letter. Don't wait until tomorrow does not mean rushing into anything. It means understanding that meaningful words deserve honesty when the moment is right. Something huge is waiting for you, because beneath that crossed-out date is one last message: if we ever meet again, I will not arrive carrying expectations. I will arrive carrying the truth. And suddenly, every page makes sense. The hesitation. The rewrites. The hidden note. The question left unanswered. Your soulmate has finally stopped trying to predict the ending. They have chosen something much more powerful: to be honest about the beginning. And there is still one sealed sentence at the bottom of the envelope, marked with 3 unexpected words: for your eyes only.